Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. It happened on a Friday night, the kind of night that feels too quiet before something breaks. We were sitting at Applebee's, her favorite place for some reason. She was half smiling at her phone, the blue glow from her iPhone lighting her face, while I just stirred the ice in my glass. I'd been talking about a new project at work, but she wasn't listening. Then she looked up, gave that empty smile, and said, "You're not part of my life anymore." She said it like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed in front of a mirror. The words didn't sound angry, they sounded decided. That's what made them cut deeper. I didn't respond. I just watched her thumb scroll across the screen again. There was a time when that hand used to reach for mine. Now it was busy texting someone else. The waitress came over, asked if we wanted dessert. She ordered something for herself, a lava cake she'd never finish. I didn't order anything. I knew I wouldn't be back here again. She kept talking about how we'd grown apart, how people change, and how she needed space. Her tone was rehearsed, her eyes elsewhere. I didn't interrupt. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't need to. You can hear a third voice in the silence between sentences. When she got up to leave, she said, "I'll text you about the bills." I nodded, watched her walk out to her car. The taillights faded, and that was it. I paid, stepped outside into the cold air, and realized something strange. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. The kind of clear that comes right before a storm. I drove home in silence, the road empty, my reflection flickering in the windshield. At home, her stuff was everywhere. Candles from Target lined the dresser, half burned. Her robe still hung on the door. It all looked like a crime scene where the victim hadn't realized she was gone yet. The phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. "You okay?" she wrote. Not even a question mark, just a statement disguised as concern. I stared at it, then typed back, "Then stop texting me. I'm already gone." I turned off the phone, set it face down. That small act felt heavier than any goodbye we'd ever said. The next morning, I deleted our photos from my MacBook, one by one. Each click sounded like a lock turning. By the time the sun rose, I'd already decided. No confrontation, no begging, no closure. She wanted freedom. I'd give it to her in a way she'd never forget. Silence. The first rule of disappearing isn't leaving. It's making sure they can't follow. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room, the TV muted, her favorite blanket still draped over the couch. It smelled like her shampoo, a small, stupid detail that hit harder than I expected. Around 3 in the morning, I opened my laptop and started sorting through bank statements. I wasn't looking for proof of betrayal. I just wanted to understand when exactly I'd stopped existing in her world. That's when I noticed the transactions. Hotel charges from a weekend she claimed she'd spent visiting her sister. A restaurant bill for 2 at Olive Garden, the same night I'd been home cooking dinner for 1. The evidence wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It whispered. Quiet, consistent patterns that built a story she never thought I'd read. A Venmo transfer labeled, "Thanks for the ride." A Starbucks charge from the same morning. She said she'd been running late to work. Small, meaningless things that now carried a weight they weren't meant to. I stared at the screen until the sun came up, and something in me shifted. I didn't feel broken. I felt done. There's a moment when pain turns into strategy. That's where I landed. By morning, she texted again, "We should talk." I didn't respond. I got dressed, drove to work, and went through the motions like nothing happened. My coworkers laughed about something near the coffee machine. I didn't hear it. My mind was somewhere else, calculating, mapping, preparing. That evening, I stopped by Walmart, picked up boxes, tape, and black trash bags. I moved through the aisles like a ghost. When I got home, I started packing her things. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Every folded sweater, every framed photo, every trace of her presence went into boxes marked "Return." It wasn't revenge. It was closure in motion. When I finished, I sat on the floor and looked around. The apartment felt larger without her. Quieter, but not empty. She had always filled the room with noise, not warmth. I realized how long I'd mistaken her chaos for connection. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. A single message, "You're being distant." I looked at it for a long time, then powered off the phone completely. That was the first real step of disappearing. Not running, but disconnecting. People think silence is weak. It's not. It's the loudest thing you can do when someone expects noise. I didn't block her. I didn't delete her number. I just stopped responding. She'd noticed soon enough, the way someone notices when the air changes before a storm hits. And by then, I'd already be gone. 2 days passed before she realized something had changed. She texted in the morning like nothing had happened, routine messages about bills, groceries, the dog. I didn't answer. Then came the calls. First one, then three, then six. Each one went to voicemail. I let the silence do the talking. By evening, she left a longer message. Her voice cracked halfway through it, like she wasn't sure if she was angry or scared. She said she didn't understand what was happening. That's the thing about people who always think they're in control. They never notice when the ground shifts under them. That same night, I went through my emails and backed up everything important. Then I closed my laptop and packed a single duffel bag. I left the rest. My plan wasn't to start over. It was to disappear quietly enough that she wouldn't realize she'd lost me until much later. I booked a cheap Airbnb 2 towns over, paid in cash, and left before dawn. The streetlights were still on when I pulled out of the driveway. Her car was parked in the same spot, her bedroom light off. She didn't even stir. That image stuck with me. The stillness, the ignorance of someone who believed the world would always orbit around her. At the Airbnb, the silence hit differently. No background noise, no perfume scent clinging to the air. Just stillness. I made coffee, sat on the floor, and checked my phone. No service. Perfect. I turned it off and left it on the counter. Later that day, I drove to a small diner near a gas station, ordered black coffee, and watched people come and go. Nobody knew me there. That anonymity felt like oxygen. I realized how heavy my old life had become. Every text, every question, every little manipulation disguised as care. By the second night, I checked her social media. She hadn't posted anything, but her friends had. A picture of her out at a bar, laughing too hard. I recognized the guy beside her, the one from the Olive Garden receipt. It didn't sting. It confirmed everything. I closed the app and leaned back in the chair. People show their truth when they think you're still watching. I wasn't watching anymore. I didn't block her. I didn't unfollow. I just stopped being visible. It's strange how power shifts the moment you stop participating. When she finally texted again, "Where are you?" I didn't reply. Instead, I looked out the window at the empty road. The sun was setting, the sky bleeding orange over the horizon. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. By the third morning, she started calling from different numbers. Work phone, unknown numbers, even her mother's. I didn't pick up. I watched the screen light up, then go dark, over and over. It was almost rhythmic. Every call that went unanswered was a small reminder that the version of me she once knew no longer existed. I spent those days quietly rebuilding myself in ways she would never see. Mornings were spent running down the empty road that led past the gas station. I'd grab coffee at the small Waffle House nearby, sit by the window, and watch the sun rise over the parking lot. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't reacting to her moods, her silence, her shifting affection. I was just existing on my own terms. On the fourth night, she finally cracked. A long text came through while I was refueling my car. She wrote that she was worried, that she just wanted to talk, and that she didn't mean what she said. But words lose their power once you've seen what they're really worth. I read it once and then deleted it without replying. The silence between us had become its own kind of language, one she never learned how to speak. I drove back to the Airbnb and sat on the porch until dark. The air was still, the sound of crickets filling the space that used to belong to her voice. I thought about how easy it is to disappear when you stop giving people access to your attention. She used to treat my silence as weakness. Now it was distance, cold, deliberate, final. Later, I checked her social media again. Her photos started changing. No smiles this time. Captions about self-discovery, healing, and new beginnings. She was performing recovery before even admitting she'd lost something. That was her way, controlling the story before it controlled her. But she didn't realize the story was already gone with me. That night, I took a long drive down the highway, windows down, the wind cutting through the quiet. I stopped at a rest area, stood by my truck, and looked up at the sky. I thought about the night she said, "You're not part of my life anymore." The words didn't haunt me anymore. They sounded hollow now, like something said by someone who didn't understand what forever silence really feels like. I turned off my phone completely before heading back. From that point on, I decided I wouldn't explain, wouldn't justify, wouldn't defend. She'd know I was gone not because I said it, but because she'd feel the absence everywhere I used to be. A week passed before I heard her name again. It came from a mutual friend, someone I hadn't expected to call. He sounded uneasy, hesitant. He said she'd been asking about me, where I was, if I was okay. I told him I was fine. He paused for a second, then said quietly, "She's been spending time with that guy, but it's not going how she thought." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. It wasn't my problem anymore, but I listened. Apparently, the guy she'd been seeing had a reputation. Married once, fired twice, and known for charming women who liked attention more than truth. That night, I opened my laptop and started searching. It didn't take long to find the cracks. Public records, complaints, a few messy details that painted a picture. He wasn't just unreliable, he was reckless. I didn't print anything. I didn't screenshot. I just observed. It was like watching a slow collapse from a distance. I didn't plan to expose him directly. People like that destroy themselves when the right pressure hits. They always do. I forwarded a single anonymous email to someone I knew from her office. Nothing dramatic, just a link to an article about his past lawsuit. No message, no signature, nothing that could trace back to me. Then I closed my laptop and went for a drive. I stopped by a quiet Starbucks off the highway, grabbed a black coffee, and sat by the window. It felt calm, detached. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was letting truth move on its own. 2 days later, she called again. I didn't answer. That same night, she posted a cryptic message online. Something about betrayal, trust, and how people always show their true colors. The irony didn't escape me. By then, the guy had already started unraveling. She'd learn about it through whispers and screenshots. Maybe through a coworker. Maybe from him directly, when he started spinning excuses. Either way, I knew what would come next. She'd remember me. Not the version she tried to replace, but the one who never raised his voice, never begged, never explained. The man who simply vanished and left a silence she couldn't fill. I didn't smile or celebrate. There was no satisfaction in watching her life bend under its own weight. It just confirmed what I already knew. Sometimes walking away is the most precise form of justice. When I left Starbucks, the night air felt cooler. My phone was still off, her number still unanswered. Somewhere in that quiet, I realized something simple but final. She'd lost me long before I disappeared. Now she was only starting to understand what that really meant. It took less than a week for the story to spread. Her new guy had lost his job. Something about a conflict of interest that everyone in her office was suddenly whispering about. She tried to act like it didn't bother her, posting photos with fake smiles, pretending everything was fine. But I could see the shift in her face. The same confidence that once filled every room was starting to fade. The silence between her words was getting louder. A mutual friend sent me a message out of nowhere. He said, "Man, she's been quiet lately. People are talking." I didn't answer. I didn't need to add anything. The world had started drawing its own conclusions, and none of them needed my voice. I was back at the Waffle House one morning, drinking coffee alone. The same waitress always served me. The same song played on the old jukebox. It had become a kind of ritual, stillness after chaos. While I sat there, a group of coworkers at another table started gossiping. I caught fragments of their conversation, something about a woman who thought she could play everyone and ended up alone. They didn't mention her name, but I didn't need them to. Small towns have a way of connecting every story back to you, even when you're miles away. I paid the bill and left without looking back. I wasn't gloating. I just felt detached, like I was watching the last act of a movie I no longer cared to finish. Later that evening, I scrolled through social media. She had deleted most of her posts. The relationship photos, the smiling selfies, all gone. What remained were vague quotes about self-worth and healing. Words that only appear when someone's trying to convince themselves they're fine. Then something unexpected happened. Her sister called me. She said, "She's not doing well. Maybe just text her?" I thanked her and hung up. I didn't text. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd finally learned that not every wound needs to be reopened just to prove it's healed. That night, I drove to a lookout point just outside town. The lights from the highway stretched into the distance like a map of choices I hadn't made yet. I thought about how much time I'd wasted trying to fix something that was never mine to repair. She was finally facing the kind of silence she used to give me, and I didn't have to lift a finger. The world was simply returning her echo. A few weeks later, the silence between us had become something permanent. She stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped pretending to be fine. But even from a distance, I could feel her trying to reach through that quiet space we used to share. She wasn't looking for me anymore. She was looking for the version of herself that existed when I was still there. I'd moved into a small apartment closer to the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I furnished it simply: a couch, a small desk, a coffee maker from Walmart that clicked each morning at 6. Routine became my anchor. I started running again, working late, keeping to myself. When you rebuild from silence, everything you add starts to feel intentional. One night, I got a message from an unknown number. No name, no greeting, just one sentence. I finally understand. I knew it was her. The words hit differently, not because of what they meant, but because they came too late. Understanding after destruction isn't closure. It's just realization with nowhere to go. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the window and let the cold air fill the room. It felt cleaner that way. A few days later, I ran into one of her old friends at a Target near my office. She looked surprised to see me. She said, "You look good." She's not the same. I just nodded. The friend didn't say much else, but I could tell by the hesitation in her voice that the story had already changed hands too many times. People had stopped blaming me for disappearing. They'd started wondering why she pushed me to. That night, I went back to my place and scrolled through old photos I hadn't deleted yet. Not out of nostalgia, but curiosity. I wanted to see the moment where it all started fading. It wasn't one moment, it was hundreds. Missed glances, half-hearted smiles, conversations that never reached the truth. I'd been vanishing long before I actually left. As I shut off my phone, a thought crossed my mind. Maybe the real power in walking away isn't the silence that follows, but the calm that stays. She was still trapped in noise, gossip, regret, performance. I was finally free from it. I didn't need her to regret losing me. I just needed to remember what it felt like to be someone before her. And for the first time in a long time, I did. It had been almost 2 months since I'd walked away. By then, the silence had stopped feeling like distance and started feeling like strength. People at work noticed the change. My boss even said, "You look lighter." Maybe I was. I wasn't carrying her words anymore. Then, one night, she showed up. No warning, no message, just headlights pulling into the parking lot outside my building. I saw her through the blinds, standing there in the cold, clutching her phone like it could save her. I didn't move. I watched as she hesitated, then finally knocked. 3 soft knocks. The kind that used to mean I'm home. For a long minute, I just stood there. The air was heavy, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired, worn down, but still trying to look composed. When I finally opened the door, her eyes searched mine like she was looking for something familiar. She said she just wanted to talk. Her voice wasn't confident anymore. It trembled, careful, almost pleading. I didn't invite her in. We stood in the doorway, the cold air moving between us. She started saying things like, "I made mistakes," and "I didn't realize what I had." The same words people use when they've run out of excuses. I listened, but I didn't respond. I'd already heard every version of that speech in my head months ago. At one point, she asked, "How can you be so calm?" I almost laughed, but I didn't. Calm wasn't something I found. It was something she forced me to build when she stopped listening. She asked if I was seeing someone. I shook my head. Then she said, "You really moved on, didn't you?" I didn't answer that either. Sometimes silence hurts more than truth. After a while, she realized I wasn't going to give her what she came for. Not anger, not forgiveness, not even warmth. Just the same quiet she'd given me before I left. She finally stepped back and whispered, "I miss who you were." I told her softly, "So do I." Then I closed the door. I leaned against it, listening as her footsteps faded down the hall. There was no satisfaction in it, just clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you realize the person who once had all your attention doesn't even know who you've become. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept without dreams. After that night, she didn't show up again, but her absence followed me like a shadow. I'd see her name pop up in missed calls, emails, even messages from mutual friends trying to test the water. She was slipping, grasping for any piece of the man she once thought she controlled. But I didn't bite. I'd learned the difference between attention and connection. One drains you, the other feeds you. A week later, I heard from one of her coworkers. Apparently, things had gotten bad. Her reputation, her confidence, everything she built on appearances, it was all cracking. The guy she'd been seeing was gone. No goodbye, no closure. Just disappeared the same way I had. Only difference was, when I left, I rebuilt. When he left, he took pieces of her with him. That weekend, I drove out of the city. Just wanted open roads and quiet. I stopped at a small diner, ordered black coffee, and sat in the back corner. There was a couple at the next table, laughing like they had the whole world ahead of them. I watched them and wondered when I'd stop believing that love was supposed to feel like peace. Maybe it never did. Maybe I'd just mistaken chaos for passion because I didn't know any better. When I got back home, I found an envelope at my door. No name, just my address written in her handwriting. Inside was a note. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve the way I ended things. I just didn't know how to lose someone who loved me that quietly. I stared at it for a long time. Her words were soft, but they didn't reach me. They belonged to another time, another version of both of us. I didn't write back. I didn't call. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and went on with my evening. The TV played low in the background, a half-empty cup of Starbucks coffee on the table. Life was steady again. Ordinary. And that ordinary peace was something I'd never trade back for the illusion she offered. I realized then that she hadn't just lost me. She'd lost the reflection of herself that existed through my patience. Without that, she had to face what she'd really become, someone who mistook control for love and silence for surrender. The next day, I got in my car, turned up the music, and drove until the city disappeared behind me. For once, I didn't look back. Months passed. The quiet had become my new normal, steady, predictable, honest. I'd built a life that didn't revolve around someone else's chaos. Some mornings I'd stop at the same Starbucks on my way to work, grab my usual black coffee, and sit by the window for a few minutes before the day began. The world felt slower now, almost deliberate. I liked it that way. Then one morning, she appeared again, by accident or fate, I don't know. I was sitting at the cafe when I noticed her reflection in the glass outside. She was standing by her car, holding her phone, looking lost. She hadn't seen me yet. I almost looked away, but something in her posture made me pause. She wasn't the same woman who once dismissed me at that Applebee's table. She looked smaller, quieter, like the noise had finally burned itself out. When she finally spotted me, she hesitated before walking over. There was no confidence in her steps anymore, only hesitation. She said she didn't expect to see me. I told her neither did I. For a moment, we just stood there in that strange, heavy silence. She said she'd been trying to change, that she'd cut ties with people, gone to therapy, started over. I believed her, but belief doesn't mean return. She asked if I hated her. I said no. Hate takes energy. I'd already spent enough of that on her. What I felt was distance, clean, calm, unbreakable. She said she missed what we had. I told her, so do I. But what we had isn't what you remember. There was a moment where she seemed to realize it too, that she wasn't talking to the same man she left. Her eyes dropped, her voice softened. She said, I just wanted to know if there's still a chance. I took a slow breath, looked past her at the sunlight cutting across the street. Then I said quietly, I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. She didn't argue. She just nodded, tears threatening but never falling. She whispered goodbye, turned, and walked away. I watched her go, not with anger, not with longing, but with clarity. That was the moment I finally understood. Leaving wasn't the end. It was transformation. The silence I built wasn't revenge. It was peace. When I finished my coffee, I stepped outside, the air cool and bright. I didn't look back. Some stories don't end with closure. They end when you stop needing it. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.